This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. It's time to talk about the Milwaukee Monday Night Raw that took place with AJ Lee and Becky Lynch, and AJ Lee's kind of full-blown promo, although I feel like I got gypped a little bit hearing from her and what her goals are and why she's back and all the rest, but I guess there's still time, but nonetheless, a somewhat awkward, unnecessarily long. Do I dare say that? Do I dare speak anything against the great AJ Lee? We'll talk about that and a little bit more as we dive into Monday Night Raw, including Jey Uso's kind of heel move to spear LA Knight. We'll talk about that. The contract signing that leads to a WrestlePalooza match for the women's division as we get closer to it, which is just, 11 days away? I think it is. Is it September 20th? WrestlePalooza. That is the card's filling up quick, but it needs to, as WWE has, one more full week of television to promote the event, which is a big deal, no doubt about it, with that being the first official PLE on the ESPN Plus network. I have not subscribed yet. I don't know if you have either, but Stephanie McMahon gave some advice, if you're interested. WWE would love me to spread that around. If you don't know what a VPN is, check it out, because it can allow you to still subscribe on Netflix and not have to subscribe to ESPN. They would love for me to not spread that, but that's the reality. So check it out, according to Stephanie McMahon. All right, well, that said, I want to welcome you to the show, but also, if you want to go ad-free, Patreon is the place to go, or on Apple if you want to go ad-free, patreon.com/WWE podcast. If you want to get all the goodies of this show ad-free, that's where you go. All right, well, let's dive in. Let's go to it as Raw came to us from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. As I said, what is it, the Fiserv Forum? Fiserv? I don't know how to pronounce it. But nonetheless, it was on Netflix. I can pronounce that. And it opened with a recap of AJ Lee's return on Friday SmackDown. Joe Tessitore was on commentary while Seth and Becky were shown walking backstage. Becky shoved the camera, walked past it. Joe Tessitore was joined by Corey Graves on commentary, and Jey Uso was shown in the concourse. Jimmy and Jay come through the crowd while being introduced by Alicia Taylor, and Joe and Graves checked in from their broadcast desk, and Tessitore said Wade Barrett was on a well-deserved vacation. And Graves said the internet told him that Barrett had been, quote, exiled to some faraway island. Of course, it's so funny that WWE dismisses things that they don't want to hear and yet tells us, at the same time that, just enjoy the product and that, we don't listen to the noise. Well, clearly they listen to the noise, even noise about commentators, because they respond to it on air. So anytime they tell you that they're not really paying attention to social media, they'd only listen to the good stuff and push away the bad stuff, nonsense. It's a total bunch of nonsense. They just don't want to enable people to start any movements or try to create some kind of uprising that the WWE themselves don't have in place or a plan in place for, and that's really what it is. They're trying to disenfranchise fans when they try to tell us that they don't listen to the noise and all that kind of stuff. It's nonsense. Of course they do. Social media is the biggest thing for any company's marketing team right now. It should be the focus of anybody who has any intelligence at all in marketing and research and development. There's no bigger audience that's at your disposal at any given moment than social media. It's changed the game forever. Forget about television ads. Forget about even, any kind of advertising on any cable television. That's gone by the wayside. It's all about instant response from your particular audience at any moment that you can obtain by just going online. I went off the rails there a bit, but I hope the point was taken. So the Usos say they're now in our city, and he spoke about how the Vision screwed up and Braun and Reed come out. So again, the WWE does not leave the Usos very long at all. It's a mere seconds before someone interrupts them because they don't have any trust in Jimmy or Jey to cut any kind of solid promo. So we have Breakker ask if Jimmy was lost because it was Raw. Breakker said the Vision run Raw, and the fans sang Roman Reigns' name, and Reed mentioned Reigns being in the hospital. Jimmy told him to shut his mouth about the OTC, and the Usos mocked Breakker by saying that, in the words of the Tribal Chief, he's a dumbass, which is just the most elementary. I would even say elementary is giving it too much credit. It's like it's a child's insult at this point. I don't know. I mean, it's not clever, but it is, I guess, his insult. So Jimmy said that he and Jey would face Breakker and Reed at WrestlePalooza. There you go. There's another match. Jey said they didn't have to wait. Reed said if they said they could wait and that Milwaukee wouldn't get the match. That's when LA Knight comes out in non-wrestling attire, which looked weird. But I'm not complaining, but at first people didn't know who the hell he was. And he attacked Breakker and Reed, but knew he was quickly outnumbered, and the Usos did the suicide dive on a Breakker and Reed, and then Jey and Knight threw Reed inside the ring and took turns punching him, and Knight went for his BFT finisher, but Reed shoved him towards Jey, but Knight stopped short of hitting him, and Reed went for a corner splash that Knight avoided, causing Jey to take the splash. Jimmy super kicked Reed out of the ring, and Knight and Jey then got in each other's faces. So tension is rising between Knight and Jey. Remember, they also just were opponents. They were half of that fatal four-way for the world title just a few weeks ago at the PLE. So they have reason to not like each other. So AJ Styles comes out and has his entrance against El Grande Americano heading into the first break. And, which, by the way, I will say the Usos being together is it's nice. Yeah, we've certainly seen a lot of that over the last 10 years in different iterations. Then they were enemies, and a couple of years ago at WrestleMania, they had one of the worst WrestleMania matches on the card, which is crazy to say about the Usos, but they did not work well together at all as opponents. And now they're back as a tag team. We'll see how long that lasts. It does bolster the tag team division instantly, and I think it can't do anything but help. Are they going to become World Tag Team champions? We'll see. It's probably just a temporary alliance to, not that one's going to turn on the other again, but it's just to tell a bigger story about Roman being injured, with Jey and Jimmy still having love for Roman despite all of their past differences, and trying to take out and do right by Roman by taking out Reed and Breakker. And the tag team match, let's be honest, at WrestlePalooza is going to be very good. How can it not be with these four guys? Plus a great differing style. I mean, you have Reed, who's slower, power-centric. Reed, who's power-centric but insanely fast. And then you have the Usos, who can just do it all in the ring. This is gearing up to be a phenomenal tag team match at WrestlePalooza. Now, speaking of phenomenal, AJ Styles comes out. Now, see what I did there? How smooth was that transition? I promise I didn't plan it. But he comes out for his match against El Grande Americano. And we have backstage LA Knight and Adam Pearce argue. And Byron Saxton interview Knight, who said he didn't care about the Usos' little family reunion. And Knight said he wanted to face one of the Brawns. He said he would face Reed or Breakker or Charles Bronson or Little Bronny or LeBron James. And El Grande Americano comes out. So LA Knight with this kind of usual cutesy, witty banter that is a bit Rock-esque. It does have that Dwayne Johnson feel a bit. Which, by the way, yes, I saw Rock dropping 60 pounds for a movie in which he plays the role of an older person. I forget exactly what it is, but The Rock should be banned from the public eye until he regains the 60 pounds of muscle. I really don't want to. I have no interest in seeing The Rock really in any capacity unless he has actually going to follow through on a wrestling storyline, number one. That's first and foremost. But secondly, you should be barred from dropping that much weight to look, the way The Rock does. The Rock looked like he aged 10 years by dropping that much muscle. He must have gone on you talk about a calorie deficit. This dude, to lose that much weight that quickly is borderline unhealthy, but yeah, with his training and his lifestyle, he could easily gain it back. He just has to pump more calories and do what he does. But I do not like that look of The Rock. That is not Final Boss-esque. So AJ Styles and El Grande Americano was the first official match on Raw. And the match went 9 minutes with AJ Styles beating El Grande Americano in a smooth match here. One that I could have easily seen this going not 9, but double that time, 18, 20 minutes. Then the finish. Well, I don't even have to tell you the finish. I'll just give you kind of bullet points here because it does lead up to the finish. We had Americano Kaiser running Styles into the steps going into the break. And the second Americano was still at ringside coming out, and Styles hit a rack bomb for a near fall. And then LA Knight versus Bronson Reed was reminded to us that it was going to take place later in the show. Americano rallied by running up the ropes and hitting Styles with a blockbuster on the way down. And then a third Americano comes out and grabs Styles from the floor. Dragon Lee comes out and took care of the third Americano. And that's when Styles hit the Americano Kaiser, I guess Americano number 1, with the Styles Clash and got the victory in 9 minutes. So, I mean, here's what I'll say, and I think I can speak for everybody when I say this. The Grande Americano gimmick was never meant to be a long-standing, kind of long-run story. It was meant to just see where it goes and how fast they could get there and see how successful they could be until it burns out. And I think we've reached the point of burnout. I'm ready for them to move on from whatever this is. They don't know what the payoff is. There's just a bunch of Americanos running around. There's 3 of them. There's Chad Gable. There's Ludwig Kaiser, right? And I think we're all ready for it to go, okay, cool. It was funny. It was interesting. And now I think we're ready to move on. That's where I'm at with this. So it just feels very stale. There's just no way about it. But AJ Styles getting the victory with a very smooth Styles Clash. A very nice 9-minute match, despite the multiple Americanos involved in this, as there always are every week. They did a nice job. AJ Styles, I know, did cut a promo during the break. I saw that where he said that someone's trying to hold him down. And WWE labeled this as AJ Styles goes off on WWE management. AJ Styles did not cut a good promo. I know they're trying to label it that he did. It was not very effective. Really, the gist of it was, okay, someone's out to get him in the company and we don't know who. That's the gist of it. I think that's what we're supposed to take from this, is that there's, again, in storyline, I don't believe this is a shoot. In story, there is somebody in the company that has got it out for AJ. That's it. And again, I know people, for some reason, people think this is a great AJ Styles promo. It was not. AJ's never been one to cut great promos. He's always been kind of, he gets his message across, but he's not a wordsmith. He doesn't have the kind of smoothness that a John Cena does with his words, a conciseness. That's never been AJ's deal. So I don't know where people are coming up with this. Oh my God, did you see the AJ Styles promo? It was okay. It was all right. But all right. So I don't know what they're going to do with AJ. I mean, I'm fine with them doing something. The good thing coming out of this is AJ Styles may have finally something to do on a regular basis to find out, it's a not a who done it, but who's got it out for AJ. If they want to go that road, then send me on board. See what we got. Because I think we forget how good AJ Styles is until he gets in the ring and puts on a match that is, every single time just a blast to watch, even at his age and his mileage. So backstage, Adam Pearce informed EO Sky that she had to cancel the contract signing for her WrestlePalooza match against Stephanie McCool, who was unable to come to Raw. Nikki Bella shows up and asks if there were any updates on Stephanie, and Pearce said he sees no reason why Stephanie won't be able to wrestle at WrestlePalooza. And then Asuka and Kairi Sane show up after Pearce left. Asuka told Nikki to stay away from Sky, and Nikki said Asuka didn't have to like her, but she would respect her. Asuka laughed and said she would beat the respect out of Nikki tonight. Nikki accepted after Asuka left. Then Sane tried to apologize to Sky, but Sane left after Asuka called for her. So because Sane is the little lapdog of Asuka and just can't stand up for herself, apparently. Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, didn't Kyrie just say that Nikki a couple months ago was a trailblazer? That's not a way to treat a trailblazer, Asuka. I mean, Nikki is a bona fide trailblazer in the women's division. Did you not know? I'm being very facetious. Yes. So, all right, Lyra Valkyria then takes on Raquel Rodriguez here. The match went surprisingly long. 12 minutes, 40 seconds. Really good, with Raquel beating Lyra. This was a surprisingly good match. Why do I say surprising? Because it was a cold match. Not a lot of build here. After Becky and Lyra had their 3.5-year program, or what felt like 3.5, we had her really not do a whole lot. She kind of fell back in the pecking order of things, kind of in a big way. And then, especially given that Raquel Rodriguez beats her here and beats her fairly clean, is telling about where Lyra has been positioned now. She has been recalibrated to the mid-card, maybe lower mid-card here. So there was a cool spot where Valkyria attempted a sunset bomb, and then Rodriguez holds onto the ropes, but Lyra pulls herself up and powered her down, and then Lyra went up to the ropes and struggled to maintain her footing. And Rodriguez grabbed Valkyria to put her down with a Tejada bomb for the win. And then after the match, Graves played up Valkyria's struggles on the ropes being related to the damage that Rodriguez did to her back. Again, still a credit to both women here. A 12-minute match for a cold match that actually got the crowd somewhat involved. That's an achievement. That's something that you need to learn how to do when there's no promotion, no build. Why should they care? And then the match starts and you get 12 minutes, nearly 13 minutes. It's a hell of a lot of time. And I think both women proved themselves here. And what do they have to prove? Well, that they should be in a higher position on the card. Should they not be trying to prove that every single night, like everybody should? So, good. All right, Rusev was backstage and said that he crushed Sheamus and now he'll become a champion. And Rusev said Pierce was wasting his time with demons and clowns, and Penta got in Rusev's face. And Pierce called for Penta versus Rusev for the first time ever later in the show. And let's see here. We had backstage AJ Styles telling Dragon Lee that he'd be there for him, and Jimmy Uso showed up and shook hands with Styles. Jimmy spotted Jey, this is all backstage, of course, and said he'd talk with Styles later. And Jey was ready to leave the building, and Jimmy told him that LA Knight needed their help in his match with Bronson Reed. Jey didn't care, and Jimmy said the Vision is their problem. Jey asked how helping Knight would help them with WrestlePalooza, and he said they needed to make them all acknowledge the two of them or smash them. And Jimmy told Jey he wasn't sounding like himself. He was starting to talk like Roman Reigns. And Jey said that he maybe sounded like himself. Jey said that maybe sounding like himself wasn't working. Certainly something to keep an eye on here with Jey. With his tone, with his end of the show actions that we'll get to, his beef with LA Knight, a fan favorite. There's something going on. Now, whether it leads to anything significant or WWE just decides to pull the plug, we've seen both scenarios play out before. But it's something to keep an eye on if you want something to change in Jey. And while Jey is moving merch, and he's got the 3 letters, what is it, 4 letters, 1 word, whatever. We all know that it's been going on for several years now, and it has made him a lot of money, and the company a lot of money with merch. There needs to be more. There needs to be more because Jey's character is in need of some kind of kick in the ass. He's not stale per se because he does have a lot of natural charisma that he brings to the camera, and he's animated and he's fun to watch and he's very good in the ring. He's got a lot of matches under his belt and a lot of memories for wrestling fans. There needs to be some kind of shift here, and it's nice that they're seemingly getting ahead of maybe the crowd naturally, organically turning on Jey, which does happen if they don't do much with the babyface for several months or years. the crowd will just start to get bored with them and move on to the next thing, as they should. And perhaps this is something to keep an eye on with Jey turning heel. I don't want it to be against Jimmy. Lord knows, I know nobody wants Jimmy and Jey again. Is it against Roman? Well, I hope not. We've been down that road 4 times. We don't need Jimmy, Jey versus Jimmy and Jey versus Roman versus... We've been down how many times that cannot be the payoff here. So I don't know what the payoff is for this. Maybe it's Jey joining the Vision. There's something. If Jey ends up joining the Vision, you might have me there. Okay. AJ Lee comes out, big ovation. Not quite like last week, but that's normal. And she had the women's Intercontinental title belt around her waist, and she's skipping to the ring. And a welcome back chant. And then we had Lee say that for the fans who weren't around 10 years ago and wondered why their millennial parents were excited on Friday nights, she introduced herself as your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler. And that's when AJ Lee's chant broke out, and she recalled retiring 10 years earlier and said she felt she had accomplished all of her dreams in wrestling and thought it was the end of her story. Now, look, I like AJ Lee. Her character, it's one of the few authentic feeling characters in the women's division. So many feel contrived and forced and over the top. AJ Lee's is grounded in reality. And I think that's part of the reason why she's been successful in WWE and why the fans have connected with her even during her 10-year absence. And but I will say this about this particular part of her promo. I don't know what favorite wrestlers have said that she's their favorite wrestler. Like maybe it's just a cool little saying. I'm not sure. I don't know anybody that I've seen in interviews that have said that, hey, like Charlotte or Becky or any of the 4 horsewomen say, hey, you know what? My favorite wrestler is AJ Lee. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure where she's getting that, and maybe I've missed the boat on it, but moving on. So she said that she didn't think there was any way she would return to the ring again, wearing jean shorts that are 2 sizes too small. And she went on a journey to accomplish a lot of other crazy dreams she had, and she did. And then here's where things... I'm going to get myself, probably villainized by some of you that have bought into this whole agenda, which it does cross over into cultural reflection of today's culture. And so I'm trying to toe the line a little bit. Not that I'm afraid to give my opinion, but I'm trying to keep this a wrestling show. But it does warrant that I kind of dip my toe into the other side here because it's based in reality, and she brought it up. AJ brought it up. So she's talking about her mental health journey. There's a phrase that I despise because here's what mental health journey means today. I think, now let me just preface this by saying anyone, and AJ Lee was suicidal. Okay. If you look at her podcast or a show that she did, it was 3 years ago. I can't remember the name of the guy that interviewed her. It's like a 30-minute interview that she did with another podcast, successful YouTube channel. And she admitted that she had suicidal thoughts, and she actually booked a hotel room to kill herself. And she was going to go through with it. And, from the outside, it looked like she had everything, but she was diagnosed with bipolar and all this, right? And look, suicide is it's nothing to joke about. It's something that a lot of people struggle, mostly men do struggle with it. Not that women can't, but the majority of people that, attempt suicide or commit suicide are men. That's just statistically true. But for her, obviously, I'm glad that she didn't go through with it. I'm glad none of her attempts were successful. That's a good thing. I'm happy she's with us alive in this, physical world today. So I'm not downplaying the seriousness of how she felt or the actions that she was trying to take. My issue is just simply with today's culture of almost, when you say mental health journey, what that means is focus on me. That it's very much What about me? How can you help me? Focus on me. Ask how I'm doing. What about me? You don't know what I've been through. It's all very much self-focused instead of looking to the outside world to say, how can I help other people? And I know you have to do things to have to, help yourself, and you can't completely neglect your own needs, but the whole idea of going on a mental health journey is it's a euphemism for focusing on me for a long period of time, indefinitely actually, because the mental health journey is continuous until you no longer exist on this earth, right? I think that's my issue with that phrase. I mean, that's not her only phrase that I had issues with tonight or last night. And we'll get to that too. Again, this is just a cultural bleed over into the wrestling world, which I don't like. And then Lee said she wasn't happy. She needed to take care of herself and get right. And she went to therapy. Again, I'm glad that she's better. Of course, we don't want her and really anybody in that kind of mental state where you were thinking about taking your own life. Of course not. And she said she went to therapy and the fans cheered, and she said, let's hear it for therapy. And the fans were chanting for therapy. This is another. Okay, I'm bringing this up. I know this is wrestling, but this is culture being bled, real culture, like real beliefs and values in today's culture that have been brought in the mainstream and now brought into the pro wrestling world. So that's why I'm covering it for those of you who are like, who talk about wrestling? I am. But I have to address the things that are crossed over now into my wrestling show and give my thoughts on it. So fans are chanting for therapy. And look, I think therapy can be helpful today. It can be. It can be something that if you've gone through something traumatic, it's good to find somebody to talk to and that can help you through it. I don't, in principle, disagree with therapy. Okay. In principle, I understand how it can help someone. But I think what has happened today is that we've all been fooled, all been lied to that it's a badge of honor to have to go to therapy. Like it's a flex today. Oh, what's your mental illness? Oh, what's mine? Oh, I go to therapy. Is that okay? That's not a flex. See, we've normalized. And well, I should say we've medicalized any uncomfortable feeling as a human being. We have been told by the pharmaceutical industry, by just society in general, the politicians, that any uncomfortable human condition should be medicalized and you should have to take a pill for it and go talk to somebody. Instead of just realizing, hey, maybe this is just a normal part of the human experience. Now, of course, again, if you've gone through something traumatic, you saw somebody die, you nearly died yourself. Yeah, that's I think what therapy is for. But just because, I'm having a bad day and I'm sad and I don't know why. I mean, again, I think a lot of times if you take the focus outward and try to help other people, you'll find the solution is outside of yourself. And I think today, again, this is not a cure-all. I understand there's things that people go through that can't be cured by just trying to help other people. My issue is just taken with the idea that we all need to medicalize, and we've bought into the idea, and we've all been just okay with the idea that any uncomfortable feeling is not normal, and you need to go see somebody and be on a pill for it. Do you see the monetary incentive by the pharmaceutical industry on that? All right, I'll stop there. Because I know this is about wrestling. I'm getting a little bit off the rails, but it's triggering a little bit more of my passions that I have other than wrestling. So it's a bit of a crossover, interesting conversation here. But for people cheering for therapy, and again, I'm sure you're in your own life here, and if you go to therapy yourself, I hope it helps you for whatever you may be doing or going through. I really do. But I also recognize that there is an overdiagnosis of things that really don't need to be treated with a pill. And it's also interesting to me that there's never in the history of humanity been more people going to therapy, yet more people depressed. So if therapy is so effective and works so well, then why are there more people in it than ever, and yet more people are sadder than ever, who are committing suicide more than ever? Maybe perhaps there's a deeper issue. So, again, I do think mental health is important, but I think a lot of times, people focus so much on themselves that therapy, here's the thing, last thing I'll say, I promise on this. What therapy does is it's a constant. If you go weekly, bi-weekly, multiple times a week, whatever, all the sessions are to look inside yourself and look at yourself and figure out yourself and how do I help myself and myself and myself. It's all about inner work. Again, focusing on you rather than other people. And again, I know it's not a cure-all to try to go, oh, you'll help other people and you'll just be cured. No. But when you develop that mentality that therapy teaches you to constantly look inside yourself, and that, you know, it's very inwardly focused, then your brain's going to be rewired to be thinking more about yourself than other people. Then I think therapy in and of itself, you can kind of see, if that theory holds true, why therapy is actually doing more harm than good. For, I think, the majority of people, not all. Again, I think therapy can be helpful in certain situations. Are you a doctor? Are you a medical expert? I don't need to be. I just need to have common sense and use my eyes and put two and two together. That's what I need to do. That's my qualifications. So now that I've pissed off probably, I'd say, half the people listening to this, other people are like, yeah, that's a good point. Some people are like, what the hell is he? He doesn't know anything. But yeah, that is also something I've noticed too, is when you talk about this or say this to somebody who's in therapy, they will go into a demonic rage because it goes in the face of everything that therapy is teaching them, because they have this innate need to be a victim of some kind of disorder that's not in their control, so that then they can just take all accountability for their actions and put it on this quote unquote disorder, so that they themselves can say, well, it's not me. I have this disorder. And a lot of these pills people are taking too have side effects, massive side effects. Some of them depression, some of them suicidal thoughts. You hear it in the medical ads themselves on TV. Side effects may include suicidal thoughts. If you're having these thoughts, please call the suicide prevention hotline. I mean, even the pharmaceutical industry themselves say that some of the side effects are suicidal thoughts. So perhaps the medication is also treating or creating more issues than they're solving. So there, again, I know I have probably angered about half of you, and I've come to peace with that. But that's my opinion. Of course, you have your own. I'm sure I'll get some emails on it. But since AJ Lee brought it up, and she's such a mental health advocate, that's my thoughts on it. I do think in a nutshell, mental health is important. Of course, if you're having suicidal thoughts, number one, look at the medication you're on if you're taking medication. If you're not on medication, then I don't think putting yourself on a pill is going to solve whatever issues you have. Therapy can be helpful, but it's not I don't think it's a cure-all for whatever feelings you're feeling. And also realize that, hey, you're a human. And this is sometimes, to some degree, just a part of the human experience. Sadness is a part of the human experience. It's a normal human emotion. Anger is a normal human emotion. We all have weird thoughts that come and go in our heads. And there. If anybody's still listening, let's continue. All right. Lee said that it was one thing to see her husband in the ring with Seth Rollins or Drew McIntyre, but it was another to see him in the ring with Becky Lynch. And Lee said she wanted to like Lynch. She said Lynch is a rebel and the New York Times bestseller. And she said that Lee responded to a fan by agreeing that she did it first. And Lynch said she had to go and motorboat my husband, and that was kind of weird. Lynch comes out and is wearing her weird shades, and we have her complaining about AJ having her title belt, and the crowd telling the crowd that she's the greatest female wrestler of all time. And AJ apologized, claiming she forgot she was wearing the belt, and said she wore it all weekend and wore it to bed the night before, and mentioned that Lynch had a shiner under her shade and wonder what happened. And obviously it's from last week. with the assault from AJ on Becky. And Lynch wanted her title belt back, and AJ said to come get it. And the kind of the heel babyface dynamic that we've seen before, where the heel is too cowardly to go retrieve their property, and we've seen this before, but it worked. I think it worked all right. It was a little bit long in the tooth here. I don't think this segment was particularly exciting, but we then had Seth come out, and she was going to show AJ what a proper man and champion looks like, and we had Rollins tell Lee they can make it easy. And he told AJ to give Becky Lynch her title back, and then they could all leave this dump of a city. And let's see, I'm not trying to hit every single thing here. So she gave her their alternative that I could give you another black eye, or I could give you the championship if you agree to a mixed tag team match. And that's when Rollins said he knew Lee had been gone for 10 years and didn't understand how things work. And he spoke slowly while saying he's the world heavyweight champion. And he said Raw is his show now, and the fans are his people. And Rollins told Lee that the title belt doesn't belong to her. And she said something about, thanks for mansplaining. Of course, again, another cultural spillover about mansplaining, but again, just because it's coming from a man, I guess the implication is that it's some kind of patriarchal society we live in, or that mansplaining means that you are talking down to a woman, when in fact Seth was just kind of talking to her. But when women talk down to men, that's okay. I mean, womansplaining doesn't have the same kind of ring to it as mansplaining does. But there's another kind of cultural bleed over that I could get into that I won't. That some of you are like, for the love of God, don't just talk about wrestling. So I'll abide and I'll continue here. So CM Punk comes out and stood behind Lynch, and Punk walked past Lynch, came in the ring. He went for a GTS, but Rollins slipped away. And they agreed to a tag team match at WrestlePalooza. And that was that. So, it's fun to see AJ Lee back. The honeymoon phase of AJ Lee's return is, we're in the thick of it right now. And this tag team match should be a lot of fun. Now, this isn't a prediction or preview show yet. That'll come next week. But I will say we can all see what's coming here. And number one, how can AJ Lee and CM Punk not be successful here? How can they not be the ones to come out on top? What I also think is going to happen, that we all know is going to happen, because it's just today's world we live in, unfortunately, and even in the pro wrestling world, which makes even less sense, is that AJ is going to be able to attack Seth Rollins, and Becky Lynch is going to be able to attack CM Punk with absolutely no repercussions. And they can't retaliate, but the women can do whatever they want. Even though this is a mixed tag team match, and technically if either of the genders attack the opposite gender, then they could be that team would get disqualified if this was actually by the book. But of course, according to AJ Lee and CM Punk's beliefs, which they've been very outspoken about, this is not me assuming anything. If I just claim I'm any gender, then guess what? I guess I'm good. I could just say, hey, listen, you attacked me, but I'm now, I now proclaim I'm a woman. And according to your own beliefs, holding you to your own standards, I guess this is fair now. No? Yeah. So look, a lot of cultural overload here, but this is what it is with CM Punk and AJ Lee, who have been involved in other things outside of wrestling that they're bringing into wrestling. So, but this tag team match should be a lot of fun, despite all the nonsense and imaginary shield of being a woman, which we'll have to just all apparently deal with. Although you'll hear me complain about this more. If you think this is the last time you've heard me complain about that rule that is unspoken, then you might want to unsubscribe, because there's going to be a lot more of that coming probably in the WrestlePalooza post show. So just go ahead. This may be the only time I've ever advise that somebody unsubscribe because you're going to anger yourself listening to that, because it's coming. It's coming. This is also a therapy session for myself here, but I don't need to pay somebody $150 an hour to do it. All right. So another Bayley video aired. She was serious as she spoke about the last person she wanted to hurt. That was, Lyra Valkyria. She laughed and she said she's hurt people in the past, but most of them deserved it. She said that she couldn't expect Valkyria to forgive her when she can't forgive herself. She started to hear from Hugger Bayley and Karen Bayley, and somehow, again, we can hear them too. Hugger Bayley said she knew what she had to do to make it right, and Bayley said she would make it right. I guess, are we going through like the three faces of Foley except the three faces of Bayley here? Is she, bringing in Mick Foley here to be like Dude Love Cactus Jack and Mankind? Except it's like Hugger Bayley, Ding Dong Hello Bayley, and just regular Bayley. I'm not sure. Maybe that's what she's going with. She's kind of like some psychotic break, I think. But I still don't like the fact that we can hear these voices and we're supposed to just be okay with that. But I mean, I'm still on board, but it's taken me out of it a little bit with just the silliness of seeing these voices on camera, which of course is just preposterous. I know it's wrestling, but like there does come a line here. There comes a limit where it's like, all right, I'm trying here. I'm really trying to pretend that I don't have a brain, but it's difficult. Although some people would argue against that. All right, Penta versus Rusev. This match went 8 minutes and 30 seconds with Rusev beating Penta. And that was it, and that was kind of it. Well, I will say though that it wasn't a clean finish because Kofi, Xavier, and Grayson Waller show up at ringside, and Penta took out Kingston and Waller, and then he set up for a suicide dive on Rusev, but Rusev punched him from the floor, and then back in the ring, Penta hit a code red and went up to the ropes, and Woods climbed down the apron and ran into a Penta kick from the ropes. And that's when Penta dove at Rusev, who kicked him in midair before getting the victory. So a lot of shenanigans with Kofi, Xavier, and Grayson Waller at ringside. So then we get a brief video package hype for Brock Lesnar and John Cena at WrestlePalooza. And Brock Lesnar is advertised for Friday's SmackDown in Norfolk, Virginia, by the way. So if you're in the Norfolk area, a very rare chance to see Brock Lesnar live if you care about such things. And let's see, we get Asuka versus Nikki Bella. The match went 12 and a half minutes. Again, a pretty lengthy women's match with Asuka getting the victory over Nikki Bella. And it was simply because Asuka followed up with a kick and put Nikki in the Asuka lock for the victory. That's pretty much, that's how it ended. And hey, Nikki Bella kind of in the same boat as Lyra Valkyria in terms of WWE seeing where they are. Can they perform at this level? They can't. Okay, we got to kind of kick it down a notch or two. And Nikki Bella, while her return has been, I think, despite the botch, the just horrible, inexcusable botch with her and Becky that they had, despite that, I think that her return has still exceeded my expectations. Despite all my criticisms of her and the horrible botch and all the rest, I think she has done pretty good in her return because for me, the bar was so low of what I expect from the Bellas at all that anything above just basement level was a success. Again, that's according to me, which doesn't hold much weight. It's about what the company thinks, management thinks, and they clearly don't feel like Nikki Bella belongs at least in the title picture at this point, and lost to Asuka. All right. We then have, let's continue here. I don't want to go too much. There's some Dom and JD and Finn stuff. Again, I'm kind of, I got to say I'm tired of talking about that because I'm ready for these three to just split. And I know at the same time that Liv Morgan might be on her way back and they got to close that loop a little bit, and maybe Liv attacks, not Rhea Ripley, but Raquel or somebody. I get it. Roxanne Perez is probably her target, but I don't know. I'm ready for this group to just not exist anymore. It ran its course. I say that every week, but every week I feel like it's just backstage stuff with this group, and it's the same kind of, tension. Is there tension? Are they going to split? No, they're not. Oh wait, they lost last week. Are they going to split? No, they're fine. And it ends up always being, they're fine. All right. We then have Rhea Ripley appear and ask if Asuka has a problem, again, backstage. And she said, you, Asuka said. And Asuka claimed she is the top woman in WWE. And Ripley asked if Asuka forgot that her friend Io was going for the Women's World Championship. Asuka said something that was hard to make out and then walked away, and Kairi stayed. And of course, the little puppy dog ran to her after, Asuka said bark, and Sane barked and went to her. It's like, come here, boy. Come here. And Sane did. I'm being dramatic, but that's kind of the same dynamic here. It's weird. So, LA Knight and Bronson Reed ended up being the main event here, with Bronson Reed beating LA Knight in 13 minutes. The finish was Knight in the middle, went to the middle rope, played to the crowd before jumping to the top rope and hitting an elbow for a near fall. Knight set up for his finish, but he let go of Reed to punch Breakker off the apron. Reed hit a Death Valley driver and then pinned Knight. The heels then attacked Knight after the match. Jimmy ran out, threw a few super kicks at Breakker and Reed. Breakker put Jimmy down with a spear. Jey comes out, tries to help his brother. Breakker puts Jey down with a spear, as Breakker does every week. Breakker puts the Usos next to one another while Reed went to the ropes. Knight returned to the apron with a chair and struck Reed with it to knock him down. And then Knight tossed the chair at Breakker's head, and the heels fled to ringside while Knight stood tall with the chair. And Knight asked Jey if they were good, and Knight helped Jimmy to his feet, and they shook hands. Jey then speared Knight, which drew some boos from the crowd, and Jimmy was surprised, and Jey did the yeet hand pump, and fans responded with the yeet, and that was that. So here's a couple things. Again, I spoke a little bit about where they could be going with Jey Uso testing out the waters of how he might work as a heel in the near future. But what's also surprising, or rather, I don't know if surprising is the word, pleasantly surprised, is LA Knight continuing to stay in the main event scene. Despite the fact he hasn't held a major title yet in terms of a top belt. I know he's been U.S. champion. He was seemingly in that picture for too many months and years. He continually finds himself in the main event, in the discussion. He's been in a title match, yes, but you never feel like he's actually in a position to win it yet. So LA Knight continuing consistently to be in the main event for several months now is a really good sign if you're an LA Knight fan. Does that mean that they're going to be positioning him for an actual world title run? Not yet. Seth and his Vision group, which I love the name of, and his two proteges of Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, and when Paul Heyman comes back, which actually I don't mind that he's not there, because Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, God, the names are too similar. They need to have their own identity and find their own voice, and they can't lean on Paul Heyman every week. They need to just sink or swim. So as good as Paul Heyman is, and I enjoy him as much as the next person, they need to find their own voice, find their own identity, find out who they are. Can they speak in front of a live crowd? Nothing will substitute for the experience of actually going out there and speaking in front of 20,000 people. You can do it in front of a camera, in front of your bathroom mirror. It will never substitute for what they're going through now. And that's a good thing. So, my point about all that is, it doesn't seem like LA Knight is in position to win a world title yet. So there. Also, Cody Rhodes is coming back soon. I think he's coming back at WrestlePalooza. I actually forgot he wasn't even on the show. I have not even thought about Cody Rhodes. Not at all. So, there. For whatever it's worth. I mean, I have missed my Cody rants. They're coming back, though. I know some of you comment on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts and say, you miss my Cody rants, or a lot of you say you hate it. You're tired of hearing of it. I say the same thing. But it's been a while. You got to admit, even if you hate them, it's been a hot minute since I've complained about Cody Rhodes. So I will bank all of my hatred for him. It's stored up. I'm putting it in a vault. And when the time is right, I will open the vault and unleash. So be prepared. So there. Well, I think that'll cover my Monday Night Raw review. I appreciate everybody for being here on this Tuesday evening. I hope your week is going well as we dive headfirst into football season. As I said, baseball season is about to wrap up with the playoffs starting in just a few weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks until the playoffs start. It's just a great time to be a sports fan. An excellent time. Weather's cooling down. Nothing like this time of year. School's starting. I mean, everything's just like reset in our lives. Your shows have restarted. And if you haven't seen, look, I don't really talk much about TV shows on here, that often. Here's a good thing. Here's some positive news. If you're a Dexter fan and you've been on the fence about Dexter Resurrections and spinoffs aren't good or sequels aren't good usually after this long, highly recommend Dexter Resurrections. Highly. If you're a Dexter fan, or if you haven't watched Dexter at all, start from the beginning, which is just the Dexter that started in like 2000, I don't know, 2008, 2009, 2010, whatever it was. Start with that one. Yes, they had a quick New Blood season. It was okay. It was pretty good. But Dexter Resurrections has completely like resurrected truly the Dexter series, the characters. Excellent. So there's some recommendations for you if you're looking for a new TV show. Of course, a lot of new shows coming out. Everything's being renewed. And those of you that are Stranger Things fans, we're not going to have any holidays this year. I mean, you're going to be at Grandma's house saying, "Hey, Grandma, shut up. I want Vecna's on here, right? Vecna, I got to see what they're doing." Because every one of the major holidays, starting with Thanksgiving, they're airing the batches of the final and fifth and final season. I think it's like episode 1 through 4 and then 4 through 9 or something. And then the last episode, or which is whatever the number of episodes is, the finale's on New Year's Eve. So they're releasing it in 3 batches, which is insane. They're ruining. They are life ruiners because they know what they're doing. So, yeah. All right. There you go. Didn't think I'd be talking about Stranger Things and Dexter on the show here tonight, but I did, and along with some other stuff that probably highly angered some of you, and I'm not trying to, but that's just my opinion. And hey, my opinion shouldn't mean anything to you because you can do whatever you want with your life. You can do and act however you'd like with, of course, well, you can't act however you'd like without consequence, but you get my drift, All right, there we go. I will be back on Friday with your mailbag. I appreciate everybody. If you want to go ad-free, patreon.com/WWE podcast, or go to Apple and subscribe there. And both have ad-free trials for a week if you want to try us before you commit. Thanks, everybody. Take care. We'll talk next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.